and the key one obviously is my order value. And so my order value now comes the somewhat classic slicing and dicing in the data. And so there are just so many dimensions I might look at. So order value, how did it develop over time? So system, show me. And now the system goes back and picks the correct chart to best present this in. Possibly I want to really have different timelines here by customer status, and obviously the charting adapts to that. And let's look at overall sums. Okay, customer status. Ooh, this is something I want to keep. And so I copy this over, and this is a very interactive way of working with the system. So much the system helped me in finding visualizations easy, but now comes the turbo boost really. And so the system, I'm asking the system, can you help me better understand what I just found? And so I'm adding smart insights. And so the system goes back, looks at the data, and tries to distill the most important relevant information that is happening here. So the current customers really is what is driving my transactions. And while it did the analysis, the length of the sales cycle for those current customers is really what made them different. So let's understand that. So I just follow the link, and the right hand side panel opens, and this is now a 360-degree view on those orders coming from current customers. And apparently the 1 year, so rather extensive long sales cycle, is what sets them apart, and where transactions that followed that scheme were particularly successful. Same for contract level, rank 2 in its value of astonishing me, of being relevant. So something I should be notified about. So this is what Smart Insight is about. It really coming back with insight that is immediately actionable and interesting for me here. And so here, this is interesting. So C-level for current customers. This is how I approach, obviously, in the successful cases, my customers. So and then this goes on. So again, I could add my Smart Insight. I could continue drilling here. But by the same token, I could interact with the system in a completely different way and say, you know what, I like to show me order value by customer segment. So I misspelled value. Ooh, no, it doesn't. That's not a problem. That's good. So the system understands me, but suggests a couple of other things that are related to that query. So, but the first hit is really good, so I'm adding that to my story. And so what I try to bring across is really this is a very natural analysis path through my data. But I could turn things upside down and say, you know what, you're a machine. Why don't you do all the work? And so let's do a smart discovery. And so in this case, the system is looking at the data by itself and says, okay, what structure do I system find in here? And all I need to do to set up the thing for analysis is saying, okay, what are you interested in? I'm interested to understand what drives order value. And so I hit run. And so the system goes back and really looks at 360 degrees. What is the structure, the underlying essence of my orders and how they relate to their order value? So what are those key influences? What are those outliers in the data? What are those the data points that I need to better understand and have a look at? And so what's happens in the bag is really that all of this information is distilled, is brought out into the open in the shape of a concrete story that is generated for you. And so the system says it found 9 key influences and a couple of unexpected values, so that's interesting. And then makes its point by not only finding those insights, but visualizing them in a very readable fashion. It says, oh, cool, there's some base statistics on sums and mins and averages, and histogram. So how do they spread in their sheer numbers? And I see a big bulk here on the low end. I see a smaller bulk on the high value end. I'm seeing a time series with a slightly positive trend, together with a forecast on how this would most likely develop based on the current knowledge, and together with concrete confidence intervals on how this most likely will develop. Most relevant charts, together with, again, we see that reading helps, making it really very easy for customers to look at what they just found here, possibly doing cross products between key influences like key customer segment and product type, and then doing machine learning at its finest and saying, okay, what's driving my order value? And what's driving my order value is, according to the machine, is the customer segment, and also to a slightly less extent, the number of customer meetings and the customer status. And the system says, I'm pretty confident about this because the model I built that is feeding all of that is really very robust. And so I'm giving it a high quality rating, but this is not all. I will explain myself why I system believe this is so. And so it renders the corresponding charts and make them really easy to understand. So here, Fortune 500 as a customer segment is one of my key drivers. So let's look at how they distribute. Those are the ones making the large deals. Not fully unexpected, but good to know. And the same is true in a number of customer meetings, so heat map towards how this relates to my order value buckets, and the same is true for customer status. Another way of looking at the structure is looking at unexpected values. So the system found patterns, but these patterns do not always hold. And there are certain data points where these patterns are not kept. And because the system, from the mere structure of the transaction, thinks that there should be a certain order value, but possibly in this case it's a lot higher. But there are some cases as well where the actually realized order value was a lot lower. And so this is a very actionable information that I could take and look at. What are best practices, obviously exhibited by the people driving those deals that were extremely good, and what can I learn from them in order also to possibly heal those that are on the lower end of the spectrum. And as a last part, simulation here, so I can literally interact with the model and say, these are my driving forces, and there are certain of those that I can literally change. So how would the same transaction really behave if I invested slightly less? So the system would expect quite a change, 4% less of an order value for a similar transaction that had different characteristics. And this also brings confidence into the model on the one hand side, but also into the mechanics that are underneath it and that are brought